Hello, Uno Souls. How is everyone doing? My name is Brigitta Toruño, and welcome to Uno Souls Chat. Today, I am so honored to be chatting with Mary Davis. She is an Uno Soul. She is a spiritual teacher and author of the books Everyday Spirit, a day book of wisdom, joy, and peace, and also of the Everyday Spirit Gratitude Journal. She shares daily inspiration from her books with her social media followers, as well as practices that unveil moments of spirituality in our daily lives. Mary is trained as a nurse and volunteers as a bereavement counselor for parents who have lost children and in hospice care. She has a house by the sea and lives a quiet life in harmony with nature. Welcome, Mary.
Thank you, Brigitte. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'm so thrilled for you to be here. Tell me, how are you doing?
I'm doing well today. I'm looking forward to chatting with you, and I love your work. So I'm really happy to be here.
Thank you so much, Mary. Um, I'm really excited to be chatting with you, and I have to tell you, I have followed your Everyday Spirit page on Facebook for 9 or 10 years, which I believe that might be when you started your social media, and you just have to know that I'm a huge fan. I just admire you so much. And I just feel so lucky to be speaking with someone that has been a beacon of light in my life for so many years. And when they say, who are the 5 people that you admire and would invite for dinner? Well, you would be one of them.
Thank you for that. That touches my heart deeply. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. And I feel so lucky to be able to be saying this to you, not in person, but almost in person. So thank you
Yes.
so much. I'm very grateful for you.
Thank
And you've
you.
been helped me get through seasons of my life.
Mm.
Tell me, why did you decide to write your Everyday Spirit books?
Well, I've been chasing this book for a long time. It was an idea long ago. I was a singer-songwriter in the Washington, D.C. area for 20 years.
Oh.
And all of that time, I had on my radar an idea for a book of inspirations and meditations that would be easy to apply that day. I had been studying spirituality all my life, and I'd make little booklets for friends and attempt to start the book, but it never happened. And as I'm sure a lot of your listeners know, sometimes surprise blessings pop up in the midst of very challenging times.
Mhm.
And the writing of this book was that. I had just come out of a very sad divorce,
Mhm.
long-term marriage, and
Mhm.
I had no idea how my life would go forward. I could not see it at all. I felt very adrift.
Mhm.
And so, as a first step, I thought I would move from the house of my marriage where I had been living alone. And
Mhm.
I found myself in a cabin. It was very serendipitous how I found it. There's some stories in the book about that.
Mhm.
Not far from where you live, at the foot
Mhm.
of the Blue Ridge Mountains.
Mhm.
And I was more alone than I have ever been in my life. I
Mhm.
was off the grid for about a year and a half. I
Wow.
had no cell service, no mailbox. I couldn't see the street or another home.
Mhm.
But it was a time to really listen to my heart and to find out which of these practices really work when things are not going well.
Mhm.
Right. So, what works? How can I find gratitude when it feels like everything is going wrong?
Mhm.
How can I still my thoughts when everything feels so chaotic? How can I invite nature to bring me peace? And so that's where the book came to be. And Everyday Spirit became my survival manual.
Mhm. I love that story. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I did enjoy reading the introduction to the day book because you were so vulnerable, and so thank you
Exactly.
for sharing your story because
Mm,
I think that that just helps. I think so many people can relate to that. I can even, and so many of us that have gone through difficult moments and I think that you did something in a way it was radical, right? To go off the grid for a year and a half, and how wonderful that you had the opportunity to do that. I think that I have thought about that, um, and it reminds me of you know uh, Buddha and monks, that do that sort of thing, that go off into a cave or something,
mhm.
for a while to I think it's just a really important part of life to do that. And I am a longtime meditator and I have attended many retreats, and especially silent ones. And
Mhm.
a lot of my friends who may be watching, they always say, why do you do that? How can you do that? And
Mhm.
to me, it's just that reset button to be able to begin again.
Absolutely. What you say makes me think of two things. One, that isn't it interesting how spirit has a way of putting us where we're supposed to be when we're supposed to be there, when
Mhm.
things don't go the way we expect, but something maybe better happens. And
Mhm.
that's how this was. I felt like I got dropped in the middle of nowhere when my life felt like it was in the middle of nowhere. But that was the place where I could really hear the inner wisdom, like
Mhm.
what you were just saying,
Mhm.
how these spiritual teachers often go into complete silence. And the thing is I think that we can take the best of both sides here, that it doesn't have to be that radical. That one of the reasons I picked the page a day format was that this has to be accessible, it has to be doable.
Mhm.
And another thing you bring up is that the greatest gift we can give ourselves is that moment of silence to
Mhm.
connect, what you called the reset button, the
Mhm.
reboot,
Mhm.
putting the spirit in the everyday, in the mind, body, spirit constellation, right? That's the part that ends up in the back seat most of the time.
That's
And if we
right.
write in that moment of silence every day, 5 minutes, it is things happen in the silence that we miss when
Mhm.
we're constantly on the go. So
That's
these
right.
small moments of silence are such a gift to us.
Yeah, you're right. And there was an entry in your day book just a couple of days ago, I think, that says, "Yes, it is good. This life of mine is so good." That was a quote from November 13th. And on August 10th, it was, "Today is not a race. All else will fall into place when we slow down, notice the fits, and give thanks." I mean,
Mhm.
I just love everything about your day book because it really helps me to start the day off in this introspective way. I mean, my mornings start off with meditation anyways, and so then to flow now that I have your beautiful book, um, I don't know if because of my back, oh, maybe you see it a little bit.
Yes. Hmm.
Um, but I just love being able to wake up and I look forward to the readings each day. They're just so inspirational um and they just tell a wonderful story. And then I like how there are activities or suggestions that you give for things that you could do that day, right? And they're not complicated things. They're just things to that don't take much time because I think time is an issue for people, right? It's like, Oh, we know. Oh my God, I have to do activities too. But it's almost like activities that you would do anyways within a day. And there's a tremendous benefit that comes from taking those couple of extra minutes to think about these things.
I love that so much. And I love the word introspection.
Mm,
And even the smallest amount of time, if you take that 5 minutes, I wrote the book with this moment in mind to be a companion for that quiet time to start us off aiming toward love.
mm,
And you can add to reading the book page meditation or a gratitude practice or a prayer or whatever is your thing. But
right.
even if you just start by saying, this is my time, my coffee and me, in
Mm,
the silence of my heart, I'm going to contemplate something that is bigger than I am,
yes.
right?
Mhm.
Reaching out to something greater and listening for the guidance within.
Exactly. Yeah, that's just really is beautiful. And um I was wondering, what do you see as who do you see as your audience for this book?
Mhm. Well, it's interesting that you say that because at the beginning, I marketed really mostly toward women. But it's very hard to understand. But my age range of my audience, like they've asked me that from the publishing company. So I have to go in there and look for Instagram and Facebook,
Mhm.
is all the way from 18 to 80. It's
Right.
almost exactly even.
Ah, I'm
Isn't
happy to
that
hear that.
wonderful that it's appealing to a wide variety of age groups? But I also think that more men are starting to follow. Now it's a full about 20% men, which I love.
Good.
And I'm not marketing solely to women anymore. It's everyone. And also, besides age and gender, I really wrote it hoping that this could be a bridge and a safe place for all of us to find common ground,
Hmm. Yeah,
regardless of politics, religion, gender, age. Can we find what binds us here?
right. That's so key. That is so key. If you don't mind just repeating that what you just said, because I think that is so important for people to hear.
Mhm. Yeah, that the intention and we went through a year of editing the original book to this edition that you have in your hand, very compassionately reading this from a wide variety of perspectives to create a safe space for us all to find our common ground,
Mm,
regardless of our religion, our politics, our age, our gender, that we can find the bridge between ourselves.
yeah. Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I hope that that message becomes much more powerful as we enter these new times.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I hope so as well. And I think that the fracturing and the division that we have all felt, I think in spirit, we know that that's not our truth. And I feel like there will be, hopefully, an organic coming together.
Yes. Yes, I hope for that too. Yeah. Um, Mary, I noticed that there's a big connection in the book to nature, and I see that it's important to you. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I think that that really came out in full blooming color in the cabin because I was so alone and it was me and the animals and me and the sunrise. And it was a very intimate relationship with it. And, all of our ancestors and faith traditions and, go to nature for wisdom. And I feel like it's such a gift because whether you're looking at it or experiencing it as a walk, um, or growing it, or sitting on it, it offers us a direct line to our hearts and our wisdom. And it holds all of this big humanity. See, with our spirituality, we don't want to lose our humanity. We really want to be both.
Yeah.
Um, but being a human is hard. It hurts a lot of the time.
Mhm.
And nature has a way of absorbing our big emotions.
Mhm.
In grief, it is a place that can hold all of that bigness when sometimes our friends and family cannot. It's grounding. It's beautiful sometimes, most of the time, except when it isn't, when it's scary. But it reminds us of the greatness that is all around us. And it also ties in with our gratitude practice. I mean, I know that from listening to one of your podcasts that you love sunrise and sunset as well. And even just taking a moment to be in awe of the sky or the clouds or a color or something beautiful that comes in, that awe stops our thinking mind for a moment and brings us right into our heart and into spirit and into, I'm not alone. It's going to be okay.
Definitely. Beautiful. So well said. And I have experienced that myself, the how important nature has been to me and to my healing. Um, and there's just so many practices that I've learned throughout the years that they're just sort of automatic now,
Mhm.
for instance, touching a tree to feel grounded. And
Mhm.
I'm a proud tree hugger.
That's
You know.
beautiful. That is beautiful. And for those who cannot be in nature, just to think outside the box a little bit. And I have gotten letters from people who say, I live in a city and there is nothing green in my eyesight.
Mhm.
I had the husband of one of my hospice patients. He couldn't get out. And he would watch YouTube videos of beautiful things.
Mhm.
He was able to find nature that way, which I was very touched by. And it made me realize that most of us at least have access to the images of nature that can remind us that beauty exists.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, that YouTube is a good option, like you said, when it's just not possible to be out in nature. And I think that that brings me to the idea of music, right? Because many times these beautiful videos on YouTube of nature have music attached
Mhm.
to it with, the different tones, like the HZs. Is that what it
Yeah.
is? Or
Yeah, that stands for hertz. But yes, different tones that are supposed to awaken different chakras and whatnot. Yeah.
right? Yeah,
Yes, that's very beautiful. That is actually a very beautiful practice.
yeah. And you mentioned that you were a singer and a musician. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And does that play? Are you still playing now?
I have a piano and I play some. I don't play out in public anymore, but it was my first love. It was
Mhm.
really my first love. And um, part of what I loved so much about it was the writing, songwriting.
Oh,
And when you think about it, songwriting is taking a big idea and boiling it down to a very few words that still say the bigness of that idea. And
mm,
it's so interesting to me the way that that was almost a beautiful training ground, maybe for writing about spirituality, which is taking these concepts that are difficult to put words on. They're too big or too beautiful or too moving
mhm.
to really explain well with human words. And I think that writing songs for all those years helped me to learn to use images from nature as examples, to take big feelings of love and hope and gratitude and pain and find the words that might touch our hearts.
That's beautiful. And I do feel that music is so healing, on so many levels. And it sounds like it was a wonderful foundation for you,
Mhm.
to become this, I mean, just this beautiful spiritual writer that can, that you can share your heart. You shared it, it sounds like in a musical way at some point, and now it's, with your beautiful writing and even the images that you put out on social media, are just wonderful.
Mm. Thank you. And I love the way that you tie music and nature together. I do believe they have so much in common in terms of their ability to awaken our spirits.
Yeah. I also see that you touch a bit on loss and grief in the day book. For instance, today the entry is about grief, and it talks about you are not forgotten, for the grieving, a kind friend, for the discouraged, grace and ease, for those in need, help and hope, for the troubled, a moment of peace. And I believe that there are a lot of people that don't that prefer to avoid those topics. Why highlight them in your book?
Mm. Because we all get there at some point. We are all going to have losses if we have not had them yet. And that, what you said is correct. So many still avoid it. And therefore, those who are grieving don't really get the understanding that they need and deserve. So to normalize grief, I think is something that we all need to try to do, and to bring even end of life issues to the forefront as a more normal part of our living. I lost my second daughter at birth
Mm,
and learned a lot about grief there, but I've had many other losses in my life.
mm,
And the chance to really use that to learn about grief, what it is, how we do it, how different we all go through it,
mhm.
and how important it is to validate the pain and not rush people through it
Right.
or make them feel uncomfortable by our need to dismiss it. One of the reasons that entry today happens now in the book is that the holidays are an especially hard time for people who have suffered losses.
Mhm,
You remember these celebrations when you were together, and there's an empty seat now.
mhm,
And so it's a beautiful time to acknowledge those who have had losses, to use the name of their person, to give them a call, to text them, to say, I'm thinking of you. It doesn't have to be a big thing, but
mhm.
just validating the fact that that's where their head and heart are.
That's right. That's absolutely true. And it's that idea of self-care, and yet reaching out a hand to those around you. Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Depending on where you are in it, if you are the griever, self care, doing it the way that is most comfortable and comforting to you,
Mhm, mhm,
deciding on what ritual you are most comfortable with or none at all. Do you want to be with people or not?
mhm,
All that is in the self care of the person who is the griever. And then the rest of us really just need to be more compassionate and more aware
mhm.
of those feelings that are unsaid.
Yeah, you're right. And I think a key word there is compassion. I
Mm.
think that's definitely an important word for these times.
very much so.
Yeah. Yeah. I think with grief, I was one of those people at one time when that I didn't want to acknowledge it, or I didn't think it would ever affect me or that I would have a loss until I had one after the other,
Mm,
which tends to happen. Um, and I guess what I've learned is that grief and sadness are one of the many emotions that we have, right? The whole realm of from that sadness and grief and even anger all the way to joy and happiness and that they're all good and they're all ours. And it's just a matter of um, slowly learning to how to process them and to not push them away. So
mhm.
it's been a process for me to understand that.
Beautifully said. And I'm sorry for all those losses.
Mm.
It's hard, and loss after loss, they compound each other.
Right.
But what you say is very wise, and we all learn that. And the more open-hearted we can be in the process of learning that,
Mhm.
like you said, to accept them and not push them away. And then we realize that that wave of grief isn't doesn't kill you, and it won't last forever, that it does wash through. And when we allow it to wash through, we expand, we open, we hold more compassion for ourselves and others.
That's right. Yes. Thank you, Mary.
Mm.
Um, in the introduction section of your book, I saw that you thanked your many people, which was wonderful that you thanked so many, including your yoga teacher, Susan Van Noys. Is
And
that how you
nice.
say it? Yeah.
Yeah, she's up in your area for a long time. I believe she's retired now, but yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So when I saw the name, I connected the fact that you had been living in this Northern Virginia area for a while. And I attended the Health Advantage Yoga Center
No.
in Herndon. It was my very first yoga experience, which was probably 32 years ago or so. And when I first started, the yoga studio was in a slightly different place, a slightly different owner, I believe, and then Susan came and I just have always loved that studio. I'm sad that it has now the physical location closed. They still offer online
Oh,
yoga.
do they? Okay,
Mhm.
great. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Yes, Susan really changed my life. And I was a regular at Health Advantage every week.
Yeah.
Susan's classes for years. It was
Ah,
probably a decade.
yeah. Yeah. I went
And
for a long time very regularly on Saturdays. I did a gentle yoga class. That's been my speed always.
perfect.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. In yoga was life-changing for me too.
Oh, I'm so glad we have that in common. That was a very special place. And I'm glad they're still online doing that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Mm.
And so your other book is a gratitude journal, and I also have that. And um, I I guess it was now about 8 or 9 years ago, I went to a retreat up in it was upstate New York, Insight Meditation Society. And
Mhm.
so there was a teacher there who was talking about keeping a gratitude journal. And I had never heard of that. And so I thought, I can do this, you know. So I got home and just picked up my own little journal and started. I would write three gratitudes every morning. I was always been on the morning part of writing,
Yeah,
and some people like to write them in the evening.
exactly.
But I have to say that it changed my life. It just changed my life. It brings tears to my eyes because it seems like such a simple thing, you know. Um, but just slowly, the sort of changing the neural pathways, right? Of wanting to focus on the negative, the complicated, and then to put little things like, I saw the sunrise. I was able to take a walk today. I mean, it's the little things. I always, and now I say it's the little things that make a difference. And the whole concept of awe, right? Of what the little things
Mhm.
bring. But those little things changed my being.
Mm. I love that so much. And you explain it really well. If you're going to add one thing to your practice, that is hugely powerful.
Mhm.
And now, since you started doing it, the research is telling us that too. It's helping us to sleep better, to be kinder, to feel more joy in our lives. Those are real, tangible benefits.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to me, it changes our thinking. You say neural pathways, that's probably exactly what's happening, but it changes our perspective from all that we don't have to what we do have.
That's
And
right.
it trains us to look for the gifts.
Mm.
I love that so much.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you for creating the journal. I mean, I love the simplicity of the layout. And sure, it would be easy enough to just use a, a plain old journal that you could buy. But what I love about yours is it has all the dates, it has the lines ready, and it has inspirational quotes throughout. And I love that it has journal prompts, which your book also has. The actual day book has them, and it just sort of paints just a lovely monthly picture for me, because then you also say, like, choose your word for the month, right? Like what came
Yeah.
up. And so these are just beautiful things. And again, thank you so much for creating this. And I do when as soon as we post this, we'll have links that where people can purchase your
Nice.
book and your gratitude journal, because I think
That's
people,
great.
I mean, it's it's just a wonderful gift to give yourself and then also others. So
Mm, I love that. And one thing I do at the end of the year is I read it through, like New Year's Day. I
mm,
go through the journal, and it's a really beautiful um, testimony to the lovely things that have happened that year.
oh, that's a great idea. I think I'll do that this year at the end of the year.
Great,
Yeah.
great.
Um, what do you suggest um, it might be a challenging question, but what do you suggest would be the one of the most healing activities that you would suggest to the audience?
Hmm. Well, healing is telling us that there's pain in there, there's a challenging life situation, right? And I think the first thing to really understand is that it's okay to go easy on yourself. We are sometimes the hardest on ourselves, and that we are a beautiful human in here, a beautiful heart of love is in there. And it's okay to be really gentle in times when you need healing,
Mm,
radical self care.
mm,
And I also think it's really important to know, and this is where our spiritual practices help, is that, excuse me,
mm,
we are never alone in this, right?
mm,
There is a vast benevolent universe
mm,
that is assisting us.
mm,
And when we start paying a little bit of attention, surrendering, asking,
mm.
the assistance comes. Sometimes it's just in the strength to get through, and sometimes resolutions just happen.
Yeah.
But we have a lot of help. And once we plug into that, we don't feel so alone. And there's teamwork in the pain, in the challenge, in the loss.
Mm. That's beautiful. I love that. Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Mary.
Hmm.
Do you have a next writing project?
actually now that this book I'm not shipping and selling it anymore, that the publisher is doing that,
Mm-hmm.
I have been more free and I've started the next book.
Oh,
And all I can say is that it's like a sister to this one. It's not a day book,
okay.
but it has maybe longer versions of the more personal stories.
Mm-hmm.
And now I live in Florida near to the water. And so it will be set in the sand and the sea and
Oh.
this setting. So similar in the moral of the story, in looking for ways to awaken our spirits,
Mhm.
but a different setting.
Oh, that sounds so great. I look forward to reading that.
Thank you. I am really excited in the writing of it.
Wonderful. And I love water too. I have a little lake right next to me, so it's very special to live close to water.
It's
Also
very healing.
very healing. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, thank you
Beautiful.
so much, Mary, for your time. And I just have enjoyed this so much. Um, I was wondering if you could leave us with some words of wisdom.
Mm. I think that it's hard for us to understand that our thoughts matter and that our love matters in the world and that we really can make a difference. I think that's hard to realize. And sometimes we feel like such a small voice in a lot of noise. But I believe that every act of love, every single thought or word or action of love matters. And they're like seeds that we plant. We can't see what's happening yet. But from that dark soil, I feel that the love blooms and grows in new ways that we do not see.
Hmm.
And we put love into ourselves and put love into the world. It's not that hard. It's just doing small things with a lot of love.
Hmm.
And when we all do that together, when we do that, we are a wave of love.
Hmm.
And that, I believe, is how we change the world.
Hmm. I love that so much, Mary. This is a powerful time to love each other, to unite, and to live in peace. Thank you so much for joining me on Uno Souls Chat, Mary. I honor the light in you.
Thank you for having me, Brigitte. Namaste. I
Nice.
honor the light in you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to Uno Souls Chat. You can find us at www.unosouls.com and on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I would love to hear from you if you would like to chat with me. Have a beautiful week and see you at the next episode.